Welcome one and all to today, the only one, a good one. Let's make it a great one. I am your host, Cassius Always Stallings. Blessed and honored to be here. So glad that you have tuned into Aspire. I am excited that we are having this conversation today. But before we get into our conversation, I want us to take a moment to respect the pause. And in doing so, I want us to do a couple things. I want us to, however we feel fit, whether that be getting a pen and paper or, taking out your phone and making a note. I want us to just write down our names, and whatever that means for you. I'm going to write down Cassius Stallings, but a lot of people call me Cash. So if that's a name, a nickname you want to put down, write that name down. And then right after you have that name down, I want you to put comma, more love. So give us a second to write our names and put that comma, more love. All right, yeah. So if you're joining us, writing down our names and putting comma, more love, more love. And the second thing I want us to do as we respect the pause is we're gonna say a prayer. Now, if prayer is something that you're not normally accustomed to doing, we invite you into this space now. But if you want to actually mute us and come back again, that's okay. So, dear Heavenly Father, we thank you, Lord. We thank you for this moment. We thank you for today. We ask that you open up our minds, our hearts, and our ears to what it is that we're about to receive. Bless this conversation right now and bless us going forward as we can just continue just to navigate and travel in the world. And it's your son's name that we pray these things. Thank you, God. Amen. Amen. Oh, again, my name is Cassius Stallings. I am the wellness coordinator here at Health Visions Midwest. Today's conversation is called More Love. In today's world, we know that lots of people are suffering, and particularly our young people. Our young people right now are just going through a lot. And what we believe in as a community and what we need to know is that they just simply need more love. They need more people surrounding them. They need more folks knowing that they have value, letting them know that they are loved. So we're excited to have you all here. We have some esteemed folks on the call today. I want to take this moment now to allow them to introduce themselves. I'm going to start with my coworker, Nia, move our way down to Jonathan, Marianne, and Justin. So, Nia, if you want to take the screen and share us, who are you? Who you?
Yes. Good morning, everyone. I am Nia Hinton. I'm the Healthy Child Advocate here at Health Visions Midwest, and my passion has always been children. I taught for over 12 years in the childcare environment, early learning environment, and I'm just super thankful and blessed that I get to continue that in the community. I get to meet the children where they're at, meet the parents where they're at. So again, I'm just super excited to be here and be doing this work.
I am Jonathan Watley. I am the founder, president, CEO of Building a Stronger Family, and I have been excited about this conversation since Cassius had invited to me. I love the families and I love the people that are on this panel, so I'm excited about this. Thank you for the invitation.
Hi, I'm Marianne Goodwell, and I am excited also to be here today, kind of go back to the realm of families and hopefully encouraging some fathers along the way in this conversation. Definitely advocate for our dads in our communities, and I believe that foundations are so important to our children's upbringing. And so that's why I'm excited to be here today and share.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Justin Calloway. I'm the program manager at Road to Recovery. We are an addictions recovery home here in Fort Wayne. I'm also a member of the 10-Point Coalition. We focus on promoting peace and resources to the community in the Oxford neighborhood, especially focusing on young African-American males from the ages 12 to 24. So I'm excited to be here and I appreciate you having me here. Thank you.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Thank you all. Thank you all for being here and taking this time out to just, share the tidbits that you've discovered and just to kind of give that intentionality towards our parents and then again our young people. And so today's conversation will go, we'll ask you guys some questions and then We'll have some time for the audience members to ask some questions as well. And so without further ado, let's just jump right into it. We're going to ask these questions to Jonathan first. We're going to come right to you, and we're going to say, how does parenting, because and you've actually spoken to this before, of just that there's this dynamic where folks may come together, in similar space, but they're not actually making those connections. So how does a parent prioritize emotional connections within their family, especially when, we have these outside challenges?
I think even in the world today, we're in a microwave society where everything is like this. So even when we check in with our kids, it's how was your day? We really don't care what the answer is, other than the fact that if they say it was okay, you check the box that you checked with your kids off. I always go back to, and I think everybody on the panel knows, so our family suffered suicide back in 2016 from my granddaughter. They had a tradition that the family had to eat at the table every day. Tradition without intent is just air. When they sat at the table at 6 o'clock every day for dinner, nobody was engaging to know somebody from an understanding. Do you see me, feel me, and do you understand me? It was just we were all present here. So ask yourself, even in our walk of life, how many times do we show up just mailing it in when our kids actually need the best part of us? So when I talk to parents now, I said the biggest separation is our kids think we don't understand the life that they live in. So for me, the connection is, and I tell every parent, even the ones listening on Facebook, spend 30 days and stop asking your children how their day was. Spend 30 days for 5 minutes and set the tone and say, hey, I need you for 5 minutes. I need to tell you about my day. Now, moms and dads are downloading to their kids with an understanding of somebody cut you off in traffic, there's a boss doesn't like you, somebody slandering your name. After 30 days, the kids start understanding that mom and dad go through some of the same things that we go through, and it starts opening it up to communication. I always go back to communication is the key to everything, but in most of our households, for the first time, the United States has most single parent households. Think about that. We don't even have nuclear families that make up a majority of the United States anymore. So now you have to redefine what a family is and how do you engage it so the conversation is prevalent. Because it used to be only certain communities had broken families. It was Black and brown communities. Now it's across the board. These are all residual effects of the pandemic. I totally believe that if we focus more on not only the tradition, but intent behind tradition, how do we communicate? Why do we communicate? I am a component of somebody that came from a broken family, did not know who my dad is. Even if I sit on the screen right now, I do not know who my father is. But all of those missing ingredients, Cash, and they drove me to be a better parent, to be one of those Black men to break the norm. So for me, I'm just trying to be a difference maker, but also experiencing the pain from my own family so other families don't have to go through this.
Wow, thank you. Thank you so much for that. Yeah, I love that piece, tradition without intent. So I think it's in wrapping around that, yeah, we may have these passing conversations, but what does it mean to really take that moment to really dive in what's going on? Thank you so much. Marianne, we'll jump to you, and you kind of said that background piece, and I know that you come from this advocating from fathers, but we know that oftentimes there's this dynamic of two parents in a household or two parents trying to raise up this kid. So when it comes to co-parenting, how do we ensure, this consistency in establishing those boundaries from household to household?
Okay. So in thinking about this question, I was brainstorming, and I think a lot comes down to the relationship between the mom and the dad.
Mhm.
If there's a poor relationship, you guys probably are not gonna have an easy conversation about this. There might be other dynamics that could play into it, such as is there a step parent? Are there other children? Are there older children, younger children that may have different rules? Um, Also, just time allotments. If you're getting your child for 2 hours a week, timeout probably is not going to be on the top priority of your list, nor should it be. Um, Expectations, I think, are really important in this, and communication. So if you have an expectation that you have not communicated with that co-parent, don't expect that it's going to happen at the co-parent's house, because that's vital to you or important to you. That's not important to the other parent. The other thing I always tell families, and I love this one because I struggle with it as well. I ask people, would you stop a train? Would you jump in front of a train for your child? And everyone says yes. I've not had one person tell me no yet. But then I ask them, will you jump in front of your mouth? And that's a whole different ball game. And so I think the other piece to this is, when you are having these conversations, the child should not be present, because we don't know how that child is going to internalize some of those conversations. If you say mom is a bad word, then is that child a bad word too? If dad is ugly, does that make me ugly because you say I look like my dad? So just really watching the communication, and I think just trying to get in front of it. I also tell people, when they're co-parenting, everything can't be a battle. Pick your battles. So if you feel very strongly about Easter Sunday going to grandma's house, but the co-parent doesn't do anything on Easter, but they feel very strongly about celebrating the 4th of July, then let the one parent that has a feeling about Easter, let that be important to them, and let them bond with, your child together, and their family in that event. And then vice versa, come July 4th, let's not make a big deal. We already know the other parent has said this is a big deal to me, so let's honor them. So that's kind of where it's never an easy answer. And I think, sometimes it's okay to reach out to someone else and ask for someone to help, because we get so entrenched in our thinking, we kind of forget about others' way of thinking. The other thing I tell families is, at one point you like that person, so they can't be all bad. So.
No, that's cool. No, thank you so much. Yeah, it's so it's finding that communication, having that open line of communication, and separating it sometimes from the kids, and being okay with coming to those common grounds, finding the boundaries within the dynamic. Nia, I want to ask you, how can single parents overcome challenges and build a strong support network for themselves and their children?
Okay, so as far as parenting, for me personally, yes, I am single by societal standards and relationship standards. I'm single, but I'm never solo. And what I mean by that is, I have such a strong village around me. I think it's important that when parenting our children, we remember to have people around them and share our children with people that embody the same values and, you know, importance for certain things in our children's lives that we do as the parent. And as far as challenges for me, what I've come to learn is, we love to love our kids at their best, right? But then when they do something wrong or they're not at their best, we kind of forget to love them the same, or it's a little bit difficult. So I feel like we have to learn to give our children the same grace and patience that we can give out to the world, that we give to our jobs, that we give to friends and family. Like, we forget to give our children that same grace. And it goes back to, what the basis of this is about: more love. At their worst is when they need love the most. And we have to learn that as parents, even if our children are being mean to us, it's important that we aren't mean back to them, because that's only teaching our children revenge, right? That's not parenting, that's revenge. And so then our children will start to, whatever someone does to them, then they'll do it back to them. And it may not always be positive. So I think that's important. That's an important challenge that I've learned to envelop, over time, just with parenting. And my children are younger, but those are still some of the core values and things that I like to carry on and keep, and just continue to instill in my children, because children, they mirror experiences. So if we want our children to be helpful and respectful and empathetic, they have to see us in that way. being helpful, respectful, and empathetic, and a multitude of other things. So for me, that's how I challenge, and that is, overcome challenges, and that's how I keep such a strong network around me. It's all about my village.
Yeah, no, that's huge. One of the big things you said in there was that development piece. That yeah, they may say something that's like, well, why you say that? And you might not immediately know how to embrace that with love, but working to develop that, working to acknowledge that, respect the pause, acknowledging that brief moment of like, okay, how can we shift this moment from them feeling like this and continuing again to just have more love for them. Thank you so much. So, Justin, I want to go to you now, and ask, could you provide some insights into how parents can approach discipline, not just as, again, that same kind of thing that Neil was just speaking towards of like, not a hindrance thing, but more of a growth in character development.
Yeah, and I'm just gonna start off by saying I'm not the all answers. I have not listen, it is a struggle to raise these kids today. I'm just keeping it 100. If anybody says different, I'm listening because I'm continually learning and growing myself, and it's making me better on how to discipline my kids. When I came up, both parents in my life, when I messed up, I got grounded. Friends couldn't come over. We didn't have phones. Had to sit in our room, this and that, right? Got a spanking. Can't do these things nowadays. So how do you, and these kids have so much more influence than we ever had growing up. So how do you combat that? How do you make them grow when they're so my stepson, who's the last one in the house, after COVID came, we continued to keep him homeschooled and this and that. So one of the things that we do when he doesn't do his homework or this and that, we take him and we go to our church's food pantry, our food kitchen. We take his phones and this and that, and we make him see the people that are struggling, that don't have much, less than him, and help him serve. Even though he doesn't want to, and he might complain about it now, hopefully eventually in the future he will learn how serving others can be a benefit. It might be punishment in his head right now, you know, but in the future, have him be able to reach out to other people and learn how to be selfless. You know, it's extremely difficult because, and like I said, I don't have all the answers, and I'm still learning. Matter of fact, I'm going to give a little plug here. I'm sitting in for Mr. Lewis King, that was supposed to be here, and I'm reading his book, The Reinvented Man. Because as this world's changing, we have to learn how to deal with our kids different, you know, and I'm reinventing myself, and I'm engaging with my kids differently and trying to teach them the ways that, I did. Hey, listen, I'm a former gang member myself. You know what I'm saying? I chose my path and I was out there wilding, but when I came home, I respected my parents. I respected my elders and stuff like that because they taught me the discipline that I needed. So you just whatever, try different things. If that doesn't work for you, you know, look into, after school specials. To me, like Nia said, the biggest thing is community. The biggest thing is community, and having your kids surrounded by those who are going to help them grow. If your kid gets in trouble, send them to grandma's for the weekend, have him cut the grass, have him, do something positive in the community, have him go pick up trash down there downtown and see the people that are sleeping on the benches and explain, sometimes life decisions can bring you to this point because every decision that you make is going to have a consequence or a reaction. So now you have to figure out what the ways you want to go in life. It's really extremely difficult today. And like I said, I'm continually learning and growing as a man, as a father, as a husband, to build my household up to where I don't have to worry about my kids, but I'm always going to worry about my kids because this world is extremely dangerous and extremely influential. And we have to come together that's why one of the biggest things I came on here, because I'm a parent that's just like this. Hey, I need help. I need help raising my kids because this is a thing. I lived in Crown Colony, for those who don't know here. I went across the street, I got in trouble, Miss King would whip my butt, then call my mama, send me home, and I get my butt whooped again. That's the type of things that we had growing up. We don't even know our neighbors nowadays, you know? So it's us to come together and start reaching out to the community, to our family, to our friends, and start building up the kids. So, yeah.
No, that's huge. That's huge. And to piggyback on that, there was a comment that was made in the chat of, it takes that village. It takes that village. And so that's exactly, the work in the space that we have to seek to create, continue to press on. I think that kind of actually leads me to this next question to Jonathan of what community resources are available to assist parents, who sometimes go through these crises or have these unfortunate situations.
This is probably the hardest question that we have to answer today, because if you look at it, our community is suffering from a mental health crisis. But the mental health crisis has traditionally only been catered to non-Black and brown people. So if all therapists before the pandemic had an audience that they knew anxiety, depression, and they knew how to deal with that, now we're having conversations that come out of the back room that Black people never had mental health conversation in the house before. They never talked about it. It was just Uncle Tony. Don't worry about him. That's just who he is. So the process for me is we have to retool ourselves because we're having an audience that's never approached this kind of help before. That's where we have to back up and say, okay, it can't be a cookie cutter approach. Who's doing what well that works? Because remember, if there was a secret sauce out there, Cassius, we wouldn't have the family nucleus crisis that we have in the United States. Remember, we don't have an abundance of nuclear families in the United States anymore. We have a makeup of single family households. So that tells me the breakdown top to bottom comes from there's a crisis and nobody's addressing it for each individual ethnicity or culture. If we do that, we look different, which means Black and brown people process mental health different than white people, which means we even talk different. Think of how you grew up in your household. If I asked my mom why after she told me to do something, the immediate answer was because I said so. So take an inquisitive person, a child that's trying to learn, and every time they ask a question, the parent who is supposed to pour into them says, because I said so. How many times before that child stop asking why? How many times that child even stops inquiring? What we're doing is lowering our ceiling of expectation. This is why our kids are blowing up all over the streets, because we're not giving them any other access or options. And then we're not even sitting down and saying, hey, as your mom or dad, I'm not well either. We're not putting ourselves in it. We're doing a disconnect. So if you look at all the silos within Fort Wayne, we got some people doing great things. Like I said, I can't easily answer your question because everybody's trying to take a cookie cutter approach to this current mental health crisis, and they're treating everybody the same. So let's say you've never been in a mental health therapy office and all of a sudden you want to go, but they treat you like you know what a mental health therapy office is. When you leave there, do you know you're more likely to go back to whatever drove you there because you felt you got some help, but the help that you were looking for missed it by a mile? If we have these kind of conversations, what would it look like for people that have lived experience and say, hey, I've gone through this. My mom used to sleep with me till I was 13. Let me tell you how I process it. These are conversations we don't have in the Black and brown community. Think of the context of what you're asking. You're saying, how do we help families? And I'm saying, from a global standpoint, we have a family structure problem. If the 16 or 15 people that are on here make our mind up to change one family, to get to know one neighbor, we can instinctively start changing things. I know for me, the most painful thing for me was putting a dress on a 15-year-old that I'm getting ready to bury. But it also changed the environment into my family to where we talk more openly than we ever talked before. Did it have to get to that? For me, yes. So now I'm trying to help people not go down the same road, to understand we can do this better. When you talk about improving relationships in our family, you also have to start about communication. Every grown man, Black man or woman, We have two issues. Black men don't know how to articulate their emotions and feelings. We don't. It comes out as anger. Women pacify our Black child because of the alienation from not knowing who their dad is. We got so many issues. I can talk for 3 hours about this. The question was, what help do we have? I see it on this screen. I see it when PTAs get more involved with their schools and start seeing what the connections is to the restaurants, the businesses that are around the schools. When neighborhoods start saying study connection is open at the gym, who's going there? The things that we used to do to bring us together, if you notice, we're so separated now more than ever. Kids don't even play together the way they used to. I got a list of things that can help us out, Cassius. But for me, the bottom line is taking this Facebook conversation, turning into a Grand Wayne Center or a Coliseum or a school gymnasium conversation, throw everybody's ideas on the whiteboard and then say, who's going to help support?
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. So I think it just continues to reiterate this factor that we need community. We need to develop this space. I thank Health Visions for this opportunity and having this platform to be able to devise these conversations. And this is just the conversation, folks. So we have to do the work. When the screen shuts off, when we leave from the computers, the phones, we have to just continue to pour into one another. I'm just going to present these questions now to kind of you all. Feel free to get off mute and answer them as you see fit. So, and it's kind of going back to what we were saying. What role does cultural pride play in shaping the discipline methods you use to instill resilience in your children?
I'll go. Everything about Black and brown people pulling up has been built around racism for 600 years. It is. That's why we have problem accepting help from Caucasians, because traditionally it's been a misnomer. When you start navigating these delicate waters, who's only chasing people? Who's not chasing money? Who's only doing things for the right reason? The conversation, and if you look at the screen, there's more Black people on this screen than white people. It's not a coincidence. But we have white people that are passionate about people in general as well. That's where the conversation has to come in, to where we're all in this together. We've siloed ourselves in community, we siloed ourselves in school, we siloed ourselves in churches. And look what we're getting out of these silos. There's no community within this great community. Everybody is compartmentalized, doing their own thing, their own way. What happens when one Black church say they're going to fellowship with a white church and they come together twice a month, and those families start coming together twice a month? Or two schools that are in the same neighborhood decide to do something together. When we stop the silo, you'll start seeing your questions start being answered, Cassius. The separation that we've gotten used to being separated. And I'm saying that separation is also destroying the families. So how do you come together? How do like-minded people come together that a child between 0 and 4 doesn't know black and white, but then somebody introduced them to the difference? The context, if we all understand we're all broken trying to figure this out, we won't look with these rose-colored eyes. It'd be clear-colored eyes because we see each other and value each other for who they are. Our young people are splitting two ways from pandemic. They're going really hard on violence. They're going really hard on suicide and everything that's killing their body. So if the pot is spilling over on both sides, I want to know, how can the family control the heat? Who's going to bring the temperature down that we can not only set an atmosphere to hear our children, but understand what they're going through, so that when they ask a parent, how come, they never hear because I said so again.
Would like to share a little bit. First, discipline for me. I have a pre-scan discipline stance, and I have an after. I worked at Scan for 19 years stance. And the thing that changed it for me was the definition of discipline. So a lot of times people confuse discipline and punishment. Discipline means to teach. So what are we teaching our children? The other thing, and I have went back and forth with my own family on this, of being willing to look at a different way that is different from the norm. So, for instance, Adrian Peterson, it was big when he whooped his son. I am a big Vikings fan. I was a huge Peterson fan. I have not wore his stuff since. And I had a family member, and he said to me, well, we turned out fine. And I said, okay, but aren't you discounting what your mother gave you? Because your mother gave you more things than just a whooping. And so I think we really just have to challenge ourselves to get out of the norms, to get out of the stereotypes, and to really be mindful of what we are doing when we're doing it. How are we speaking to our children? Mr. Watley, you talked about, asking your kids how their day at school was. I had 3 boys. I did that way. Then I had a daughter, kind of different parenting experience. And so the question to her was, tell me 3 things that happened good at school today. Because if you just say, how was school, you're going to get fine. Okay, nothing. What'd you learn today? Nothing. And I read a book on Maya Angelou's life, and in there was a story about her and her son. Her son had came home from school. He had made a picture at school, and he showed it to her. She just kind of glanced, oh yeah, that's nice, much like we do. We're all busy. And her son started crying, and she said, what is wrong? He said, you don't like my picture. And she said, I told you I liked it. He said, your eyes didn't. And boy, that was just mind blowing for me, because I know that I'm guilty of that. I'm busy. Oh, yeah, that's great. Or half listening, half looking at my phone, half watching TV. But if our kids if they're not able to talk to us about some of the little things, they're not going to come to us when it's big. So I think that's really important as well.
Yeah, and I
I
also
love it.
I also kind of wanted to touch on something. For me, having to learn some of the things. So my stepson is on the spectrum, right? He has a little bit of autism. So I have to learn how he processes things differently. So back in the day, if my dad asked me to take out the trash, right, I had to do it immediately, right? Because otherwise, boy, what's taking you so long to take that trash out? My dad was very loving, but he came from a strict family himself, and same with me. Now, my stepson will stand there, and I'll say, take out the trash, and he will stand there. And in his mind, he's processing whatever it is he's processing, And for me, growing up to myself, I'm thinking, oh, he's not listening to me. He's being defiant. He's not wanting to do what I'm saying. No, he's just processing how his brain works. And I've had to learn that he will do it. He does take out the trash. He does do the dishes. He will go do the laundry. It's just he has to process this first. So my first action was to be, hurry up, boy, get down there and do this. And I don't do that anymore. I say, all right, please take out the trash. And I see he stands up and he'll stand there. And I even had to stop. I look at my wife and be like, why is that boy so weird? I would say that. Like serious, because he would just stand there and like twiddle his fingers. And then come to find out, we had to look at taking him to get the therapy. We never did that. I never went to therapy growing up. I know I had ADHD. I know I was all over the place as a kid, but I was just a hyper kid, you know. And so now I have to try to learn my stepson. I have to try to learn how to deal with that. So I'm not causing damage to him, that I'm not making him think that, he's not doing what he's supposed to do when he really is. He just has to process it different. So we do have to learn our kids. It's just like Mr. Wiley says, sit down and talk to them for 3-4 minutes, but just learn. Hey, Kyler, why do you stand there and do that for, you thinking about? Yeah, I'm thinking about, all right, you process it then. Instead of me just reacting automatically because of how my father raised me. And I love my father's my best friend today, but I have to be different in certain areas. And he was also raised by an extremely, strict parent. And so he carried that over, but as he got older, he started to change his ways. And now I'm starting to change my ways and how I discipline and this and that. I automatically thought, oh, you got to go straight to the spanking. That's how violence, spanking, that sting on the butt. That's going to make them realize. That's going to be what not necessarily today, and so it's me, like I said, continually learning, me growing as a man and paying attention to my kids, and seeing what makes them tick.
Thank you all for sharing a common theme in there. In that answer was just that acknowledgement of the kid themselves. Again, with the more love is more individualism of that child. They're not it's not a cookie cutter approach, as Jonathan said. It's each kid is gonna have different things that we need to be in tune with. And so again, it's taking that time with them to find out what is that, what is that. And that's good. And I love, Marianne, what you said of the definition of discipline is to teach, to teach. Where are we going with this? Like we just punishing and whooping for what? We need to really teach so they know how their mark can be made if they do this thing the way that we kind of see the way that they could do it.
The other thing is kids hear no, don't stop all the time.
Mm.
So if we're just always no, don't stop, it eventually just goes right out of their ears. They don't even hear us. And so of really talking to kids about what to do. So I use the example of if a kid's jumping on the couch, instead of saying don't jump on the couch, telling him we sit down on couches. Because then when he goes to someone else's home and he sees a couch, he's gonna know we sit on couches. It's not just a no, don't stop.
That's huge. That's huge. How would you guys say that parents can balance the responsibility of parenthood while also, maintaining that self-care for themselves?
I'll touch on this a little bit. For me, some of the best advice that I got from one of my sisters when I became a parent was schedule. Have a schedule. A schedule is not just for the child, but it's for you as the parent. When you schedule out your day, you're intentional with your time. When you're with your children, be intentional with them, be engaged. But once, it's time for them to go to bed, for me personally, that's my time. So my children have been on a schedule since they came home from the hospital after birth. I have them on a schedule, and it literally, I feel like that's one of the things that really helped me. Um, once during that infant phase, it really helped me, and I really benefited from it because I had two children under two, both in diapers, things like that. But having that schedule and being intentional about my time with them, when I'm with them and I'm engaging with them, but once they're asleep, from 8 o'clock until I have that time for me, whether it's just to sit there and do nothing in total silence, whether it's to clean up or whatever the case is. I think a schedule is what really saved and helped me. And it made it not as difficult, for me during that time of parenting. And I still keep a schedule because children like to know how their day is going to go. They like to know what's next because as adults, we like that. So I can't imagine, that's like if I came into work every single day and I didn't know what my day was going to be like or what office I was going to be into, it would be overwhelming and it would probably throw off my mood and throw off my day. Children are the same. So schedule for me, for sure.
No, that's good. Thank you so much, Nia. Yeah, that intentionality is huge. Being intentional with your time. Setting aside that time for yourself. As you just again are learning yourself sometimes, as Justin is pointing out. I'm still figuring it out. So yeah, so we have to have that space for ourselves. I want to ask this, and then we'll turn it over to the audience. How do we create a positive and uplifting atmosphere in our homes, especially during, busy and stressful times?
I tell you the game changer for me, and it's 5 words that we don't say a lot. When the last time have you apologized? When's the last time you genuinely went to somebody Sorry, yelled at you, had a bad day. When's the last time you told somebody you love them? I only say those 5 words because those 5 words weren't in my house growing up. But I also know those 5 words are life-changing words. Apologize to a young person and see what happens. The value of that relationship goes to another level because one, you violated them, but then you turn around and said you were sorry, and then you don't do it again. That breeds a confidence in a relationship. But you go into most households, and I see it all the time. I see parents do some stuff, and I'm sorry does not come out of their mouth. But I watch the kids' reaction on how they took that. I said, okay, this is not good. It's the simplest things. So ask yourself, have you said, I'm sorry? Please forgive me. I love you.
I think setting priorities as well. I think about this at holiday time. Poor kids are going to 3 and 4 houses. Like, how do you enjoy Christmas? You just open some presents that you're not going to see until you wake up tomorrow because you have to go to all these other places to please adults. So at some point, we have to put the kids as priorities. And I think when we do that up front, it helps long term throughout the rest of your evening. So, for instance, when I first started working full time and I had all the kids at home, I realized that if I would just spend 15 minutes when I got home instead of trying to look through the mail, look at messages, and cook dinner, my night went so much better because I made them priority. They got whatever out to me that they needed to, and then away we go. I can cook dinner. So I think setting the priorities and making the kids the priority a lot of the times is beneficial.
And I agree with what both Marianne and Jonathan said, like Jonathan especially, because children, they can only learn to regulate the emotions that they're allowed to have. So if we're not allowing them to express how they feel, because I know, growing up, especially when I was younger, is if we ask why, it's like you don't get to ask me why. I said what I said and it is what it is. But if we don't allow our children to have a why or to express themselves, they're going to be people pleasers and yes people. But when we allow children to have those emotions and we teach them how to regulate them, we discipline, right? We correct and redirect. And we're not just demanding that you be this way. And then to what Marianne said about prioritizing, again, I think it is so important that we do that to our children. I know sometimes in the hustle and bustle, for me personally, getting ready for work and school in the mornings, it's a rush. But once we get in that car, I have the radio turned off, phone is off, and I'm literally having that intentional time with my children, talking to them, encouraging them, affirming them to get their day started, really coaching them up to go out into the world, to go out into school. And that's why it's a no, I have to be able to take my children to school. I have to be able to pick my children up from school. It's that prioritizing and that intention. I feel like that is so important because life gets busy. Time, it waits for nobody. And so sometimes we forget to just respect the pause. As Cash, as you often say, we forget how to do that. So prioritizing for sure, Marianne, I'm happy you said that. And John, to you, for sure, I love you. I'm sorry. Helping children learn how to regulate those emotions.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Oh, yeah, that's good stuff. Again, just of acknowledging of self as parents and individuals. We have these things going on. We're dealing with things in life too, but then allowing our kids to know that, allowing our kids to see like this is what's happening with mom, this is what's happening with dad, acknowledging that sorry and prioritizing again is that same word of intentionality, being intentional, prioritizing them, not overwhelming them. And I love what you brought up about that holiday season because we do get in this hustle bustle of wanting to just, oh, we got to be here. What are we actually doing like together? Like intentional tradition without intention. So how are we going to be intentional with this tradition? We already are celebrating these holidays, but let's actually be intentional with them. So that's great. That's great stuff. There was already some questions coming in the chat, so I'll read a couple of those now, and then feel free, folks, to add some more questions as we dive in with these lovely folks. So this one was to Justin. Justin, can you share one of the messages or practices that you learned as a young man that you still utilize and practice with your kids?
Yeah, me and my dad would always find that one thing for each other that we both liked. So, for example, I liked video games. So my dad would take time and we would sit down and we would play Madden for 30, 40 minutes. You know what I'm saying? He liked to go and do athletic stuff outside. So I would go out with him. So now me and my stepson, he likes video games. Luckily, I like video games, so it's kind of cheating, you know what I mean? But we'll sit and we'll play the games that he likes. Now he's not big into sports at all, but like we go down to the combine, we go down to pre camp for football, and he goes down, he wears his jersey, and I bring my other kids, they like so we try to find that even balance of getting out of our comfort zone together, right? So like recently we both was like, well, let's try something different. And we went to the hip hop nutcracker. We went to a museum last year. We did things together that I didn't really feel comfortable doing because it's something I never did. And he's not really into it, but let's try it together. And he loved, and I loved the hip hop nutcracker. We loved going to the museum. We're getting ready to go to Cleveland and go to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and experience those things together. So my dad did those things for me growing up. And so that's why I think we have, even though he was strict, we have such that good connection because it showed that he cared about what I liked, about what I was into, and he shared about what he liked. So that was him giving himself a part of himself to me. And I try to do that today. Sometimes some of those things he likes that little Minecraft, and I'm just like, oh, I can't stand it. But all right, we'll play a little bit of that. I have to get out of my comfort zone. There's kids that I talked to walking in the Oxford area, never been to the zoo. The Fort Wayne Zoo has never been to the zoo, and they're 12, 13 years old. You know, that's mind blowing to me. They've never been to the African American Museum. They've never been to the regular museum downtown. Some of them never been to the Three Rivers Festival. We have to start taking our kids with us and showing them the world, that there's more than just these 7 blocks around us, you know. And that's what my parents did. They took us places. We struggled, but they found a way to go onto that little vacation. And I make sure that my kids see the world and that know that, hey, we are from Fort Wayne. This is where we grew up, but there's so much more out there. And I was blessed that my parents did that for me. So I try to continue to do that for them.
That's awesome. Because I love that piece that you said of getting out of your comfort zone. Getting out of your comfort zone, because then what that's allowing is for both of you to grow. Because when we're uncomfortable, we're learning. We're learning about ourselves more, and so that's amazing. The bond can only strengthen when you both are learning something at that same time. This question was in the chat, and Jonathan, you kind of answered it a bit, but I still want to touch base with everyone else. It says, have we siloed ourselves, or did systematic racism silo us? The person said, I understand that we definitely need to integrate, but not sure that I agree that the effort to integrate is all on us or solely our burden. We should definitely take steps towards a more integrated society and embracing those who are willing to join us in those efforts. As we all begin to reach out more different ethnic groups and cultures, we'll see the benefits of coming together as a community.
Powerful statement. I wholeheartedly agree. The silos, and I even answered it a little bit in my chat. The silos were strategic and they did what they were supposed to do. Like racism isn't as prevalent as it was 500 years ago. It's still doing its thing because we started the engine 500 years ago. We kill each other more than white people kill us now. The process we're living the residual effects of what a silo did. The concept is How can Allen County, Fort Wayne, be one of the richest counties in Indiana, but we have all these silos to where we can't work together, we can't collaborate together, we can't do the thing to make Fort Wayne look like it can possibly look like the community that it's supposed to be? Because one, and back to what Justin said, as long as I'm knowing my 7 blocks, I don't care. This is what I'm trying to get people to understand. Since January, we've had 7 youth die under 19. Since January, we're only in February. The concept is you don't care if it's not in your 7 blocks. I'm saying let's make Fort Wayne 7 blocks. If we tear down the silos, everything starts looking different. And I honestly think our young people are going to be the ones to break down the silos because we're so stuck in ourselves. They're trying to break out of some stuff that we set up for them that does not work for them. That's why when I see young people engaging, they don't have the same kind of issues that we have. They don't have the boxes around racism. They don't have the boxes around even LGBTQ. Their lifestyle looks like it's supposed to look like. And we're saying we need a silo. I'm saying we don't need a silo. In our world of helping people, aren't we tired of doing stuff for people and we should start doing stuff with people? That's really what we're talking about. We're talking about building the community from people that want to roll their sleeves up and help. Because we can sit at nauseum to have these conversations about what's wrong with Fort Wayne. I don't want to talk about what's wrong with Fort Wayne. I want to see what's moving forward to help Fort Wayne. That's the conversation to strengthen our families. So what happens if these 16 people say, hey, let's target 20 families for a pilot program? And we come alongside these 20 families and love on them for 6 months out of the year from all different backgrounds, ethnicities, and they come back and show us exactly what this community can look like if we get out of our way.
Good. That's good. So again, I think it's, this common theme is what we're realizing is that we just got to build up the community. We're better together. We're better together for sure.
Well, yeah, I mean the common theme is love, right?
Yeah.
Love is
Love.
supposed to be unconditional, right? And I'm gonna admit it, man, with Facebook, with Twitter and all this is the most separated in my lifetime. I'm 43. I'm 43. In my lifetime, I've ever seen not just the city, this world, I mean everything. I mean, down to, when Colin Kaepernick happened, I had people that, I never thought would think, oh, well, this and this and this. And I'm just like, oh my God. But how can I learn to love that person? Even though my political views might not go with yours, because now it's just like, I mean, it's anger. Politics is straight anger. How can I learn to love that person? How can I learn to be able to say to my kid, this person thinks different like me. This person looks different like me. This person has different ideologies, but I still love that person. What is my kid going to learn? Of course, he's going to go on his own path. My parents were great parents. I went on my path, right? But they still instilled that seed into me to where I could change my life to where I'm at today. And they put that seed in me because why? They showed me love. They showed me that it doesn't matter who this person is over here. I come from a biracial family. My dad's black, my mom's white and Mexican. You know what I'm saying? So we were taught nothing but love, to love whoever your neighbor is. Today, this is a battle of just showing the next person love. How is it? The addict that's walking down the street that you look and you want to take photos of because they're twitching and all this. Go show that person love. The person that's sleeping under the bridge, go show that person love. And if you do that, if the kids see that, because like Mr. Wiley said, the kids are showing way more love than we are. They're teaching us. So for me, I used to hate people because I wore red. Huh? I hated you because you wore red. I didn't know your name. I didn't know your background, but I know you wear red, and I know I hated you. For what? Until God showed me love, and I learned love, and I learned to love myself. That's another thing we have to start doing. Loving ourselves How can you love someone else if you don't love yourself? So I had to learn how to love. And for me, that's the biggest thing. And that's what's going to help us come together. Like all of us saying, we has to come together. We have to stop this division. It's gonna be a task. I'm keeping it 100. It's gonna be a task because people are angry, people are mad, people are full of hate, and you can't have hate with love. So we're gonna have to show the way of love.
Mm. Thank you so much, Justin. Yes, that is again the reason for this call, more love, and the reason that I had us do that exercise at the beginning. You know, to write down our own names and have that comma with more love, because that's what we all need. We all need more love. We all need to be expressive in that and loving ourselves. You know, let that overflow be love towards the others. As we end our time today, I just want to ask you all, what is that one liner for, I don't even want to say families, just this one family that you're like, I want this family to hear this today. What's that one thing?
I say lead with love on purpose and be intentional and create memories and experiences for your children that are positive, that they don't have to go and spend hours in therapy for.
We're more alike than we are different. And I think the more that we see that our similarities, it helps normalize some things for us. And then I guess just as a worker, I love someone said, we got to do with. One of our mottos is do for, do with, cheer on. So, it's okay if someone doesn't know that way. Let's do it with them. Let's stand by their side. And then we can watch them grow and things multiply.
I look at it. My household growing up was probably one of the most dysfunctional, abusive households. And I have this abundance of love that it didn't come until I found my identity with Christ. And I love what Justin was saying. Here's a thing. If we just see them and hear them and understand them, we're different. So for me, what is family? Everybody here on my screen is my family. The context of it is, how do we love my family? I can only produce what was given to me. You have to take it back further from love because you're trying to tell somebody to do something that's not in their house. There's so many homes that do not have the four-letter word in there, so it can't be the lead statement. See me and hear me and understand me. Because if it's love and it's never been in my basket, ask Justin how easy it was for him to produce hate for color versus love. It was easier to produce. You see what I'm saying? Because it was an abundance. There's an abundance of hate. There's not an abundance of love. So don't try to tell somebody to give something they don't even have the capacity to give right now. We need to back the conversation up and say, what are the seeds of love? That's forgiveness, kindness, compassion. That's the fruits of the spirit. How do we get those in there? That's my take. If I want to instill something to a family, have them define from a family standpoint what they think love is. Sit your family members down, give them a piece of paper and pen, ask them to write their definition of love, and then have a family conversation about it.
Yeah, beautiful. I think mine would be, you know, when we become unteachable, we become lessons. I continue to learn. I continue to grow. And if our families continue to grow and once again get outside that comfort zone and learn, I love to learn about the person that's living in the trailer court. I love to learn about the person that's, has different ideology as me. I learn to love about the person that's LGBTQ. I don't care what anybody is in this world. My job is to love. And how do I do that? Continue to learn about the next person. So when you stop and you have that block of the mind and you just say, this is the way our family is. How many times have you heard that? Well, that's just the way our family is. You will never grow. You will never grow. So you have to be willing to, once again, get outside that comfort zone, to get outside that way of thinking. That's why a lot of us are stuck. That's why I was stuck. I was in that mindset. And it wasn't until God rearranged my mind and got my thought pattern different that I could actually see how to love and how to grow as a person and not stop growing as a person. Always continue to grow. Never give up. And that's another thing. So as somebody who works with addictions, it's extremely hard, right? When your kid's going through mental health, going through addictions, you don't always have to give in. You don't have to be an enabler, but never stop loving. Never stop loving it. You can love them and give them the support that they need. Of course, you can't, if you can't have them living in your house because they stealing your stuff, I get it. I get it. But never say, I'm going to give up on my kid. Always continue to love and know that there's always hope for them to come out of that. There's always hope. So those are the things I would say.
Thank you.
I'm gonna
Thank you.
steal your tagline. I'm gonna steal that tagline. That's a t-shirt. It's marketable. I love it, Justin.
Yes, yes. No, all great things. Excuse me. Thank you all so much. Thank you all for this space and this time. Again, a conversation, but a lot of the themes and the things that we said led back to the more love, led back to us realizing that we have to be intentional. We have to set aside this time and be okay with this learning process and know that it is a process and know that we can still love from a distance, even if this kid grows up and is out of our household and we're still like, do they got it? I don't know if they got it. Let me still just love them some more. So keep at it, people. Thank you so much all for being on the call. Yes, Angel.
Yeah, Cassius, can we just throw out some information about the prayer vigils and the weekly youth at Imani?
Yes, yes.
That was in the chat.
So some next point of connections would be, being intentional about some of the things that are happening in Fort Wayne, and getting around some of these prayer vigils that are happening. Imani Baptist or Imani Temple has gone on to do their beginning prayer at the church. I want to say it's in the evening. Some we can get those dates to you after this call, but there are some other churches who are doing some things, for our youth. So making sure that we find out where those things are happening and getting involved as much as possible. So I thank you all for being here. Thank you for tuning in. This concludes our Aspire. Peace.
Thanks, Cassius.
Yes.